Evening all. Lovely to see you. What I'd like you to do is make yourself comfortable. You can sit, you can stand, you can go into Seiza, whatever works for you. Maybe shut your eyes. And basically, I just want you to scroll through your day. Where did it start? What have you done? Take yourself through the day to this moment. And when you get to this moment, how are you feeling? Has it been a bad day, a good day, just one that's passed? Whatever it is, we'll let you keep the good day, but the rest we're going to throw away. And we're going to bring you just to this moment. And you're going to focus on what you need right now. So let's start being positive about what we're going to do together. Notice your center and how that makes you feel stronger and more energetic. Scan through your body. Give it a bit of care and love. Acknowledge the bits that maybe aren't feeling quite so great. And be grateful for the rest. And let's come to this lesson with a sense of curiosity. And maybe even a small sense of excitement. And when you're ready, feel free to come back to the room. So I thought what we might explore today is grounding and how it feels when you're really grounded, and what the point is of being grounded, and when to be grounded and when to maybe let go of being grounded. So initially, I just want you to stand and maybe rock backwards and forwards. And to notice how unsettling it is when you come to your toes or you rock back onto your heels. And then you're going to slow that down until hopefully there's no movement in your body. I'm still swaying, but it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now I'm going to let my mind sink down through my knees to the floor. And how does that feel? What do you notice underneath your feet right now? Maybe you can extend your energy below your feet and into the ground like you're rooting. Maybe just soften your knees a little bit. Let your weight sink into the ground. And feel how solid that feels by comparison with that rocking to you. And I'm going to ask you to take a hammy stance and to find the optimal position for that. Now, for me personally, with this sort of triangular shape, I really do feel I can take a lot of pressure from front or back or any direction. I want you to imagine that someone's grabbing your wrists and pushing in, and how you're channeling that energy down into the back leg. Yep, so you're taking a line along your arm, down your body, and down to that back foot down there. and to feel how, no matter how solid they are, all of that energy is just being dissipated to the earth. You are earthing it, grounding it, and take an alternative stance. And do the same thing. Just imagine you're being pushed from the front and you're taking all of that push into the back foot. Good. All right, now let's come down into Caesar. And how do you sit normally? What are you doing with your shoulders? Where's your body? How's that aligned with the rest of yourself? Where are your knees? Where are your feet? And where does the weight go to? How aware are you of your contact with the ground underneath your legs? Hopefully it's good. And what we're going to do is we're going to exaggerate it by bringing our weight forward a lot. And noticing how that changes our feeling with the contact on the ground. And now we're going to keep going back and back and back and back as far as we can go. And notice how that changes our feeling with the ground. Now we're going to come back to center. And we're going to go off to the left as far as you can go. And where does the weight go to now? And how do you feel about that? Is this a place that you want to take pressure? And back to center. And going off to the other side as far as you can go without actually falling over. And noticing where your energy goes now. And how you don't really want to hold this posture for too long. So don't. Come back. Do a little circle. Make the circle smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until the movement is imperceptible to the eye, but you can still feel it. And eventually bring it to a standstill. And how do you feel now? Hopefully really solid and grounded. So come and check. So any feedback, please? What did you notice? What was the benefit, if anything, of doing all of that? Now you know I can wait. I'm a very patient man. I can just sit here till someone says something.
Just feel more together, and this is one mass instead of being separate,
right?
Mentally and physically.
For any particular bit of it, James, or
I suppose when you first start doing the exercise of centering and think of kind of grounding yourself.
Right.
You feel kind of attached to the ground and to yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'm still contemplating the notion from the other nights of key being the counteraction between the centrifugal force of the Earth spinning around and the gravity. So that was a reminder that circling is really. So
that the spinning is kind of should be allowing you to kind of find your central point, because where you settle, that should be the center of it all. What did you think, Joe?
When I was standing and then I bounced back to my heels, I completely lost track of everything. It's so easy to fall back. Yeah. And when I go to the front of my foot, and actually I used to walk a lot from my heels, so not good.
Yeah.
And changing to a little front part that we have more stability even to bounce a little.
Yeah.
And when I was in Senza, and then I dropped to one side or another, I was holding in my knees to not fall.
Right.
So too much pressure on the knees.
Yeah.
And I think back, I was kind of squeezing a lot my legs and not good.
Okay.
But finding the center, it was very resting.
Okay. What in terms of your back posture, were you all keeping a good straight back?
Hopefully.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just try that. So what I want you to do is to deliberately slump and notice what that does to your energy levels and actually to how you're feeling about the world right now. Come back up so that you're really nice and aligned with your back, nice and centered over your hips and going through to your heels. That's one nice straight line. Please tell me that's a nice straight line. I hope so. It shouldn't be like that. Shouldn't be like that. Shouldn't be like that. You want to be here. And where are your hands right now? Are they on the front of your knees? Or are they at the top of your lap? And if they're at the front of your knees, which I'm going to do now, so you're all going to join me, what do you notice going on in your shoulders right now? And does that change when you just let your hands fall into your lap? And if you swing your arms freely by your side and throw them up and let them fall, where do they go? I'll bet you it isn't to the front of your knees. It'll be where I position them on the front of your lap. So how did you feel when you slumped? Was that great?
No.
No? What was wrong with that then? Oh, that's a nice relaxed position, surely.
Less control.
Less control. Okay. Anyone else?
Uncomfortably familiar. It's a familiar stance, but I don't really realize how much more comfortable it is to sit in.
Did it improve your energy level or take away from it? Definitely took away?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a sense of losing power when you do that, yes? And albeit that this is an artificial situation, did you feel more positive or less positive in the slumped position?
Less.
It's like somebody's just switched off my power button. It's horrible. Does it make you more or less aware? Okay. It just really narrows my field of vision and senses. Okay, so here's a little exercise for you to do by way of homework when you can get out and about and maybe observe people sitting in a restaurant. How are they sitting? When they're on a park bench, how are they sitting? I'll guarantee most of them will be like this. Very few people actually maintain this posture. Now, it's an incredible waste of energy and an incredible loss of awareness when you get lazy. And when we all slump in our sofas at the end of the day, what do? We sit like this, don't we? We try and sit in a slightly more supported way. Support yourself. The spine's designed to support all this structure, and you need to do it. And when you're facing, it's just you'll be more efficient when you're doing this. So when people get excited, what do they tend to do with their bodies in an engagement with somebody else?
It was tense and up.
I would say they go to meet it. Their bodies tend to come in, and when they're feeling a bit anxious about it, they back off, right? So when they do that, you're losing posture, and you're losing your centeredness, and you're losing your power. So, if you're excited, don't do that. Do that if you want to meet it. And if you're going to back off, don't do that. yourself all as one. Still maintain your posture. It's not wrong sometimes to back away from a situation. There are lots of tales about Japanese masters who were constantly being challenged. And, of course, if they took the challenge on, sometimes there's a faster gun in the West than them and they lose the fight. But the smart ones, if they knew about it, would walk around the town and just avoid the conflict. They didn't need it. There was no need to prove that they were better. They didn't have to kill anyone. So they just avoid it altogether. And sometimes avoiding a conflict is the most sensible solution. But if you're going to engage in a conflict, let's do it positively. Let's engage with all of ourselves and to try and go at it with a positive attitude in mind that not only can we cope, but we can resolve this so that there's a positive outcome for both parties. That's really what Aikido is all about, I think. Thoughts? So what's your natural habit when you're standing? So just reflect on that for a second. What do you do as you're standing at a bus stop, not particularly engaged with anything in particular, nothing to do other than wait for that bus? How do you stand?
I'd like to say I'm standing upright and not slunched, but it's always difficult to know.
Very true. Okay, other people, what do you think? What's your natural habit? Where's your head position? Are you looking down at the ground, or are you looking out dead in front of you, or maybe you're looking up at the sky? I don't know. What are you doing? You're looking all around. Yeah, well, that's not so bad.
And if a pet or a dog or a cat come run, I just look immediately.
Okay, good. Now, what did you do when you saw that dog or cat? You moved with your whole body, so everything went towards it, and that's exactly what you should do. You shouldn't do that, because that's when you walk into trees. No, so if you're really engaged with something, then let all of you be engaged. Yeah. Lots of people, when they're walking along the street, maybe they're looking slightly down at the ground. And even if they're not doing it when they're walking along on their own, they do it when they see somebody else, because they'd rather avoid that gaze and that engagement. Do you do that? Who's one of those? Any of you? Or are you all the sort of people that look people in the eye, smile at them and say, "Good morning, how are you?" or something like that?
Depends on the day.
Does it? Okay, so that's another bit of homework for you to do. Make a positive effort to see if you can make someone smile tomorrow as you pass them. How many people can you get a smile out of tomorrow that maybe you didn't try to do before? And how does it make you feel if you get them to smile? My bet is it gives you a little lift, because you know you just put a little bit out there that was good. Okay. What's the point of grounding, do you think? Why is that a good thing? Is it always a good thing?
It depends on what you mean by grounded. Talking physically or mentally?
Do you think you can do it physically without being mentally there as well?
Well, you can be grounded but on the move, traveling.
Okay, that's an interesting one to say. Let's just come back to the first one, right? Okay, so just stand in that nice seiza position that you were at. And notice how it feels if you bring your mind to your head and look at the ceiling, compared to when you actually make a conscious effort to be aware of what's under your feet. Which one feels more solid to you? Or do they feel the same? And you can switch it if you like. And you know what? Every time I flick my eyes to the ceiling, I feel a tiny lift off from the ground. So I know I'm not as grounded. Perhaps that's just me, so I'll just check in with you guys and girls. Was that just me, or is that a common experience? Common? Anybody not get that? Joe?
I think I usually go from my upper body to the others.
So you, fine, yeah. Okay. So if I asked you to concentrate on your feet, to make a real effort to concentrate on your feet, how did that feel compared to maybe what is your normal mode, which is to be kind of upper body and just that?
I think I could stand. The first situation, I would just move forward. You know, it's kind of just stand and wait a little for what would be my next step, kind of that maybe.
Okay. So if I were doing Ki Aikido and I asked you to think of the ground, and this was your shoulder, right? You're going to have to imagine you're a dwarf for a second. I would lightly touch here and I would send energy to your center. And if you were grounded, I'm pretty confident that you would be solid. But if it's your natural mode not to be able to think of the ground and it's your upper body, I'm pretty sure that you would fall back. So if you have the opportunity, try and find a partner to test that out. Okay, so on the one, so if you want to make it a real sort of big difference, one, just think in the air, just think of the sky, look up to the sky, anything like that. Think of your head, and the other one, just think of your feet. And if you're not suitably, if you're thinking of your feet, you'll be solid. If you keep your mind on your feet. Sometimes when you're tested, your mind goes to the test. Is the test on your feet? No, it's on your shoulders. So you might fail that test. So make sure that you're really comfortable with the ground, and then ask your partner to get comfortable with the touch too, if you don't pass it straight away. Just get used to the touch and then ask them to test again. So I'm pretending I'm testing somebody without testing. So I'm literally just touching. I'm not sending any energy. When they say they're ready, then I would test. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. So your body doesn't lie. It will tell you whether it's totally comfortable with what you're doing or not. So
well, if you're not balanced,
yeah.
it can cause other problems energy-wise. Whether you fall more easily. You know, you don't have control.
Absolutely. And
you know, you can't.
If we don't have this habit of having good posture, then little old ladies and gentlemen tend to do that as they get older. You've seen lots of curved spines, and I can't prove this categorically, but I reckon it's because they have a slight habit of holding their head forward, maybe looking at the ground when they pass people. And over time, as their muscles get softer and their bone structure is not as good, the weight of their head just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling. In the end, they look like a curvy S or something like that. And they have this awful posture, and then they're at great risk of falling. And as I probably don't need to tell you, that's one of the major causes of injury in older people. It's the falling. It actually kills them. So, you know, if we can develop this habit of having great posture, make that our normal habit, then we're storing up some good habits for our old age. Now, James, I want to come back to your grounding when you're moving, because I'm going to beg to differ on that. I'm going to say that you can't totally ground. You need to be centered then, and there will be an element of gravity passing down through you as you move, but I would be shifting my focus from my feet to my center as I moved. And we know that if you're centered, you are also grounded to some degree. But if you want to be able to move with lightness, to be moving fastly in a coordinated way. And so I would be bringing my attention to my center then.
It's maybe not the kind of forum, but I suppose to expand on that, there's a couple of things you talked about when you're moving, about getting grounded, about actually, I always think of kind of relaxing, with no tension from ankles, knees, and hips, so the body drops down. And that's how you should be moving forward, and that's how you're grounded and keep your center.
Yes.
And as Joanne was talking about, the temptations people do is they move from the upper body. So when they move, they overstretch, and that loses the center, loses the grounding.
Yes. Okay.
The last point, I think the big problem in Aikido generally is language. I think we talk about the same thing, but we're disagreeing, but we're actually talking about the same thing. It's just the use of language, how we describe it.
There's definitely a case of that. It's just that I've just been thinking about this for a little while. And I think there is a subtle difference between, we don't always want to be rooted to the spot, which is actually one of the points I was coming to. Okay, there is a time to root to the spot. So if I'm backed into a corner and I've got nowhere to go, or I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, I'm going to ground and I'm going to defend from that place because I've just got nowhere to go. But obviously, if I've got options to move, then maybe I don't want to be so grounded. I don't want to be stuck in that one place. I want to be able to move freely. So as an experiment, what you're going to do is you're just going to do a little bit of walking around, and you're going to put your concentration on your feet as you do that. And then when you've done that for a little while, I'd like you to bring your attention to your center as you move. Right, so Joe, you're going to have to make a big effort. Maybe it will actually help you to put your hands on your bottom as if that's pushing you forwards. Keep a nice line, or you can put your hands on your hips. Just anything that makes you remember to move from your center. So you're walking, it should be the same sort of stride, but my focus is on my feet. And feeling really solid with that. Nothing wrong with this, feels quite good. And I'm going to bring my attention to my center. It's different for me. I can tell you what the difference is, but I'd like to hear what you found. What did you find?
When I turn, it's kind of, I turn with my whole body. It's kind of my center, dragging my whole body to turn and keep walking.
Okay. Other people's findings? It's all a personal experience. I can't put words in your mouth. You just need to share what you found, which might be, they were both the same. I don't know. It's an experiment. Come on, Finn.
That sense of perspective, like when centered, feel more closer to the earth, just a sense of balance, and otherwise tending to sort of teeter and sort of relative to.
Okay, so when you were concentrating on your feet, you felt there was an element of teeter, but you didn't when you moved from your center. Is that right?
Yeah, like sort of concentrating on it's not being extended and sort of sense of almost like vertigo, and even though I'm sort of all up, sense of teetering.
Yeah. The good news is there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your experience. What about you, James?
Not much difference. I suppose I'm used to kind of trying to walk in my center anyway.
Right.
Trying to keep kind of stable as I move. So it's difficult. I need to have a wee think about it.
Well, that's exactly what I'm wanting you to do. Not think, but to experience.
Yeah.
I don't want any thought. I just want you to notice what's going on in your body. Caitlin, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to ask you how you found it. No, you're not going to share. Fair enough. Okay, for me, it was a lighter feeling when I moved from my center. I just felt it was easier to move. It wasn't that the other one was wrong. I felt okay with that. It was more deliberate. You know, I felt solid connection with the ground. I felt fully in control. It wasn't that I'd lost my center. It just was a bit more solid. When I was walking from my center, it felt a little bit more floaty. Again, I felt it quickened up. I don't know if it actually did, but it felt that way to me. And, you know, there are times where you kind of want to feel what's underneath your feet as you're walking along, especially if it's walking on grass, which is a lovely sensation. And other times where you've got places to go, and then maybe moving from your center is more important, especially if there are obstacles in your way. One of the dangers of doing Aikido is that when you do bump into anything, when you hit it when you're walking in a centered way, it just goes flying. So little children fly for miles. So you've got to be very careful. It's not you that will be knocked back, it will be them or the chairs or whatever it is that you're walking into. So you also need to be very aware, which I guess should be part of the centered process, but isn't always. Any other thoughts you'd like to offer me? Okay. All right. So, yes, just think about when it's more appropriate to be grounded and when it's more appropriate to be working from your center. And maybe there are times where you want to work from your heart too. So, I just want to actually try this. Just put your hand on your heart now and focus your attention there. And see what that does to you. So, again, I can share with you what that does for me, but I'm interested to know if it does anything to you. It's the time to share now.
Smile.
Go on, it made you smile. Right, okay, good. Anyone else?
More sensitive, I would say.
More sensitive. Right, anyone else?
Slows my heart down.
It slows your heart down. Okay, that's interesting. Anything else? Finn?
A warmth there.
You work there.
A warmth.
A warmth. Yeah. Okay. Do you know, as soon as I did it, it made me feel emotional. Not a nasty emotional, but it made me feel, that's why I laughed, because I noticed immediately it kind of opened me up. It made me feel more sensitive. And sometimes that's where you need to operate from. And again, there's an experiment. You can practice operating from these different places when you're engaged with somebody else and see what it does to the interaction you're having. Finn?
Sorry, just one thing. So I was just thinking about the stillness, you know, being the still point. Like get a sense of breath passing through, so you're not breathing from there. The sense this is a place where there's a stillness. So something about that. So
yeah, it's a center of sorts, and it can be the center of your universe if you want it to be. It just has a different job to do. I think when you operate from here, it's when you can. That's when you have those tender moments. That's where you should be when you're trying to create intimacy. When you're centered, it's when you've got a job to get done. Working from your center, it's a good place to be when you're in a business conversation. Maybe, you know, you don't want to get emotional about it, but there's a job to be done. So let's just talk about this and get it done. And sometimes you need to hold your ground. You know, you can be in a conversation where, you know, you think that whatever you're putting forward is the right way to go. If any of you got children, that's very often you get tested on this. Can you hold your ground? Are they going to push the boundaries again? Okay, so if you've got nieces or nephews or small children that you engage with, that's the time where you want to be operating from the ground. sometimes. So we have these different places and different centers, and they energetically affect us in different ways. That's my belief anyway. And if you make a conscious effort to operate from one or other, you can experience different things. And you might like to try that on the mat. When you're practicing with a partner, to deliberately work from here, to be extending your key from here, or from your center, or channeling it into the ground. Yeah. So, when you're channeling it into the ground, that's when you're the center of the universe. Everything is going to flow around you. When you're centered, it's a place of purpose. It's a good place to connect from, but it's a no-nonsense place to operate from. And when you're connecting here, it's a different thing altogether. If you can do that when someone's attacking you, I suspect you're going to get closer to what Aikido is supposed to be about, which is this feeling of caring for somebody who isn't necessarily demonstrating much care for you. And I would suggest to you that's the biggest challenge we all face. To be able to find the heart. It's not a coincidence that we use words like that in this situation, to care for people who perhaps don't obviously deserve our care. Which kind of brings me to empathy. Because if you've put yourself in their shoes and knew what their life had done, maybe you'd understand why they're behaving as they do. Okay, so let's finish with the centering. We did this quite early on in these lessons. So sit in Seiza if you can. You could do this standing up, it's just easier in Seiza, I think. And basically what I want you to do is just follow my instructions. So you're going to rock back and forwards. You're going to go back, but not too far back. Head over your knees when you go forwards. And now you're going to rock from side to side. Not too exaggerated, not like we did before, but just from side to side. And now you're going to go from your front knee to your back right ankle. Front left to back right. And now you go from front right to back left. And now you're going to imagine you've got a marble in your hips and you're going to swirl it around clockwise so that the marble comes to the edge of your pelvis. You're not throwing it out, you're just keeping it on the edge of the body. And now you're going to go counterclockwise. And now in your own time, you're going to bring this marble to a standstill. So the smaller the surface gets, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually, no one will be able to see the tiny circles that you're creating. And in the end, there will be stillness. Take in now what's going on around you. Enjoy the calmness, the stillness. Okay. So if that brought you a little peace, take that into the rest of your day. Final chance to offer any thoughts, comments. Okay. So this Thursday, I've got a mindfulness practitioner coming along to talk to us about mindfulness on the Thursday session. And we'll see if we can see any parallels with Aikido. You might just find there are a few. And those of you coming to the session should naturally find that, because that's what we've been playing with for some time now. All right, so I wish you the best of weeks. And I will look forward to seeing you all when I get to next see you all. Okay.
Bye for now.
All right.
Thank you
everybody.
for bringing
Thank
Aikido home.
you.
Thank you.